Welcome to Pacific Mystery School. We're talking about Tarot of the Spirit, the 1s through 10s in Tarot of the Spirit, and the 4 suits. Today we're talking about the 4s, but as we enter into the 4s, I want you to be aware that the 1s, 2s, and 3s taken together constitute the way we view our world. It's a world view, a cosmological world view that is composed of the number 1 being the source of all that is, the number 2 being an emitting force in the cosmos, and the number 3 being a receptive force in the cosmos. And the way we conceptualize the cosmos has everything to do with the ethical system we rely upon that is going to emerge from our worldview. Our ethical system is composed of the 4s, 5s, and 6s. We go into this in great detail in the Pacific Mystery School online, but right now I'm just giving you the Cliff Notes version of these numbers. So we will look at the 4, and I believe that the 4s are very complex. They're some of the most complicated cards. They seem like they should be simple, but they're some of the most complicated cards in the tarot. And let me say at the outset that every card in the deck is both an initiation and a cycle within the initiation. Because when you first move into the energy of a 4, it feels really good, because in the 1 you have a new beginning, in the 2 you have directionality and you're making something happen out of that. In the 3 you have a much enlarged creation that moves out of your attraction in the 2, and then in the 4 you solidify that creation or that creativity. So that's a really good space to be in. But as we move through the cycle of the 4, the solidification that we have arrived at in the very end can wind up entrapping us, which is a very, very interesting process that happens to us in life. Okay, so I will explain that as we go through the 4s. So first of all, the 4 of fire, flame of spirit. In this particular card, symbolically speaking, we are looking down into a pyramid, and that pyramid contains the light. It contains the energy of the light, and it is a beautiful container. So in the 1 of fire, we have a spiritual opening. We have all this energy moving out. It's called force. In the 2 of fire, which is called convergence, we meet with something really important to us on our spiritual path. And my secret name for that card, the 2, is the vow card. It's like a spiritual vow. In the 3, that is the birth of light, and that is where we start to move into a very high form of our own consciousness. Then in the 4 of fire, my secret name for this card, which I think you will understand very well, is the church card or the temple card. And it's at this place where that spiritual energy gets contained in a beautiful container. Here is the place, for example, we meet the spiritual community. Here is the place of the spiritual leaders. We finally found a home. The 4s are the first level of a completion of a movement of this energy. It's both a completion and a manifestation, a full-on manifestation of this energy. And the 4 of fire is about energy itself. So in that place, our energy has found a home. Our spirit has found a home. And it is a beautiful place to be. In the tail end of that, however, the very end of the cycle, we may need to move beyond that place that has served us so well. And we can see that better in the next 3 cards, the 4 of water, 4 of wind, 4 of earth. We can see how that takes place. In the 4 of water, what we see is a wedding ring, and we see that there are tears falling on that wedding ring. It's a very intense, watery card. It's a fullness of the water. And in this place, everything becomes satiated. Everything becomes saturated. It becomes so saturated that it feels like we need some kind of dry land here. Everything is saturated, and it's as if we're in a boat out at sea. We can see the ocean in front of us, and far in the distance we see a harbor. We see the lights of the harbor. But we may lose sight of where we're headed because this card feels dark. And it feels like we want to get to that place, the harbor. And the idea is keep your eye on the light in this card. Keep your eye on the light. This is one of the most mysterious cards of all. It should be a perfectly great card because what happens is we've got the 1 of water, open channel. We've got the 2 of water, the sacred marriage, basically. It's a sacred chord. 3 of water, stream of love. That's a state of grace. And then it comes to a place where we start to feel like we are drowning in all this energy. At the very end of the 4 of water, it's as if we just need to break out and we need to move to another level. We become entrapped in a certain sense by our own attraction, by our own love, and by the course that it has taken. In the 4 of wind, we can see a similar process. When we move from the 1 of wind into the 4 of wind, the 1 is the dawn. That's a new awakening, like the light turning on. The 2, just to do the review, the 2 of wind is the place where we actually begin to change our identity to match the new knowledge that we have encountered. At the 3, we go through a full-on metamorphosis, moving from our past into our future. And the 4 is called mastery. And here in the 4, what happens is we become the master of this new knowledge. We become the master of that which we have set out to accomplish. We have done it. We have achieved it. It's a beautiful thing. And what we see in the card is we see the 4 butterflies, and they are pinned down. And that is as if we have caught those butterflies and organized them, and we now understand how they work. But one of the mysteries in the suit of wind is analysis presupposes a corpse. And there may be one day that we wake up even in the peak of our mastery and we say, oh no, the butterflies are dead. And suddenly we lose that sense of mystery that we had when we first began. Maybe things become repetitive. Maybe we no longer have the joy that we once had in our chosen mental pursuits. And then that's when that cycle begins to come to an end. Luckily, what we see in the middle of that card is an opening that connects us to a higher way of knowing ourselves. It runs right down the middle of the card, and you can see that opening into this rainbow life at the top of the card. The 4 of earth, power, is very similar. In the 1 of earth, we have the new form on the material plane. In the 2 of earth, we begin to create maybe a blueprint for where that energy wants to go, or we start to think about where we want it to go, or where we want to go, where I want to go as a cause in my own life, producing some kind of effect. At the 3 of earth, we move into the place of works where we engineer what is happening, and it works so well that we come into a state of power in the 4. The 4 of earth is about power, and that's very good in the beginning, when we feel that energy surging for ourselves. Okay, so here we are in a state of power, and this card shows a door. It's a doorway. It's a door that we can open at will and we can close at will. So in a sense, it becomes a boundary. This is a card that creates a boundary. It's got a peephole in the door, and it also has a keyhole. And what we begin to learn about this is that we can use that peephole to look through to see whether we want to let something or someone in, and we can also use the keyhole to open the door. And what we learn in this card is that the name of the key is love. Because if we do not absolutely love what we are doing, we can come to resent it even in the peak of our power. For example, we could gain all the money in the world and we can stash it in our castle. But the problem with that is then we have to guard the money, and it can wind up spending all our time guarding the money. And that might become something that begins to drag us down in the end. And then we don't want it anymore. Maybe then we just want to get into our RV and travel around and enjoy life without all of the trappings. Okay, so that is the Four of Earth. But when we first come into it, it's great. So every one of these cards is a cycle. When we first arrive in the fours, it's a very wonderful time. And toward the end of that period of stabilization, of solidification, things will probably begin to crack a little bit. The rigidity results in things beginning to crack open, and then we start to move into yet another level in our lives. At the tail end of the four, we begin to move out into the sphere and arena of the fives. The fives is what we will be, the fives are what we will be talking about next. So stay tuned for the fives.